You've been to many conferences. Tell me your belief system, and what do you think they are?
Well, actually, as I mentioned in 1980, that's where I started, was with a fellow who actually claimed to have had a UFO experience, and also met humanoid, what they claimed, ancestral beings of our race.
Did you believe him, or did you think he was a little...
No, I was really convinced that he was genuine. His book, actually, A Sunburst, Return of the Ancients, was published, and now it's still out of print, but then he republished it under a title that's now in print called Christ Consciousness. And essentially what he was doing was trying to give a history of the Earth. 100,000 years ago, he claims the land of Mu was around in the Pacific, and, he goes on and on. The real issue I had, and Van Tassel had too, because the two of them were connected. Norman ended up marrying one of George Van Tassel's daughters. So there was a family connection here, and they both had similar experiences with the same race of ETs, as you would call them. So that story was the beginning of my research into free energy, because the book actually described the power system of the UFO. Two big discs with magnets on them, one providing electricity, the two of them providing anti-gravity. So I've pursued this a lot. I even gave a testimonial at the National Press Club in 2015, and essentially described the fact that even the Searle disc follows that type of design. There's spiral motors, homopolar generator. There's a lot of, I would say, clues along the way, but we're a primitive society. Really our physics and everything else are only 100 years old. So we're trying to discern something that's really advanced technology. And what you see basically is these kind of contacts, even with Van Tassel, were brief, and then they thought they would continue, and they didn't. Even Van Tassel's Integratron never was finished. So that's the kind of disappointing some of these UFO contacts.
Why don't they follow through?
Well, I think what is it called in Star Trek? I keep forgetting the phrase, but there's this grand commandment that essentially prohibits other advanced races from interfering in the evolution of more primitive races, evolutionary considerations.
Who made up that law?
Well, supposedly Gene Roddenberry actually consulted with some ufologists and found out about this kind of general guidelines, and then incorporated it into the show. But to tell you the truth, that's the kind of behavior you eventually see, even with I'm trying to design a university textbook with 13 chapters. And my latest presentation at the UFO Mega Conference and also at the Conference on Future Energy was a slideshow describing those 13 chapters. And people can actually see it on YouTube. In fact, we have a tiny URL, .com/Kofi, COFE 12, and then Friday. So Kofi 12 Friday is the key to finding that YouTube video. And you'll see my presentation, which is one of the last ones, on climate, but also on the ufology.
Well, you took some questions after each chapter, too, didn't you?
Yeah, and that's what we're designing. I'm dedicated. See, for years, literally for 10 years, I thought, some other expert ufologists will definitely take up the gauntlet and provide universities with a textbook guidance. I used to be a community college teacher, so it's in my blood to try to educate people that go to college. And yet, none of the ufologists seem to be up to the challenge. So I said, I'm going to do it myself, since I've been exposed to enough of these amazing stories, like the Battle of Los Angeles, the recent Navy disclosure, Chilbolton is another amazing one. Betty and Barney Hill story with the star map.
That's a great story.
Oh, my goodness. That star map alone is so fascinating because it has these Earth, Sun, solar mass-sized stars in the star map. And they're up to 50 light years from Earth, and they're the only solar mass-sized stars, which are small stars like ours, that are available. So you get the impression that these stars really probably do have some planets that are inhabited. At least that's the story that Betty Hill was telling us.
Let's go to the phones for you, Tom. They're lining up, and this hour is going to go by very quickly. First-time caller Philip in Pennsylvania is with us. Hi, Philip. Thanks for calling.
Yes, hi. Thank you. I'd like to know if there's any comments on the discussion of electricity and the immune system as it relates to sensitivity to electric fields and magnetic fields, and also if as it relates to sensitivity to Wi-Fi. And I'll take my answer over the air.
Okay. Does it affect those kinds of things, Tom?
Well, to tell you the truth, this gentleman is one of the 2% of people that we've come across, and I've met many of them, who actually are the exception to the rule, where we recommend normally for the 98% of the population that pulsed EMF and high voltage EMF, those things tend to be beneficial. With this type of person, they're so sensitive to the fields that it tends to get more chronic as they grow older.
Really?
Because they're concentrated on this problem, and it, I think, is a sort of a psychic phenomena, perhaps, but it becomes psychophysical to the point where what we recommend is silver thread impregnated nylon. Silverlon is the one company that sells it. Less EMF, LESSEMF.com is another company that sells fabric. That's silver impregnated nylon, like a sheet you can put over your bed. You can actually design a Faraday cage around your bed, for example, or around, they sell shirts and various things you can put on your body.
Do these people affect those kinds of fields, though? I mean, if you walk past a street light, does it go out and things like that?
Well, that's now you're getting to the 0.1% of the people that can use it to that extreme. And certainly there are people like that, too. I used to study one doctor who actually was very famous for that kind of ability. And Penn State University has a professor that's, she's Tanya Slowacki. She's done a lot of that research. But trying to answer the gentleman's question that just he called, I would suggest that he will basically be sensitive to various things in the building and high voltage. If you still have fluorescent lights, for example, Wi-Fi, as he says, they tend to react to them as if they're, toxic, and yet they're very low-level fields. So the silver impregnated nylon provides a nice shield, and that's basically the best recommendation we can offer.
Let's go next to whose turn? Joe in the Bronx. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hi, George. How are you?
All right, Joe. I'm in St. Louis, ready to hang in here for a few months.
Okay. Yeah, understandable. Tom, I wanted to ask you, with the COVID-19, they are reporting that they believe that residual effects could possibly be permanent. That is either on the heart or neurological. Is there any device that could perhaps negate those residual effects that, could possibly become permanent?
Well, you're really asking a medical question that really is sort of a futuristic prediction. And all we can say is that it's possible that the immune system being strengthened from pulsed EMF, our new pulsar, for example, will come out November 1st. That's designed around 8 cycles, 7.8 hertz to be exact. And we feel that that's a very healing frequency because the Earth provides that all the time. Human resonance is what it's called. And we evolved into that field, so it counteracts some of the noise pollution that we experience all day long in indoor environments. But it's hard to say what will help the human race as the survivors, do tend to be exposed to lots of other complications that are, as I've heard as well.
Tom, I think you have a phone call coming in. Did you hear that?
Right. It rolls over to line 2, and the 800-295-7674 is getting active.
Is there any way you can you disconnect that while we're chatting?
At this point, I have, but the phone I'm talking on has 2 lines, so hopefully it won't distract us too much.
Okay. All right. We'll get That's a first. is it conceivable that the bioelectromagnetic units can be tested with COVID patients? Maybe you get 100 patients and you test them.
Sure. And that's a good study that certainly would be possible. We actually have medical doctors using our EM pulsar that was designed by Dr. Glenn Gordon, and we basically improved it. Now, as I say, we're now implementing the Model S 78 for the 7.8 hertz as he designed it. And they use it in the emergency room because it counteracts inflammation from injuries, so that the body can start healing immediately, and you don't get the swelling and the black and blue marks, as my wife and I have actually experienced directly, which is amazing to witness.
Let's go to Joe in Boston, Massachusetts. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, George. I'm getting through it like the other Joes. It's hard because they have a system. I don't. Hi, Tom. I'm visually impaired. I want to know whether your book is in audio, and can I call you? Maybe you could help me get some of these machines. I had COVID, so I know what it's like, and wearing these masks don't help. I'd like you to comment on that. And do these things really work? Because I have a little bit of lung problems now because of it. But there is a new doctor, George, which is stuff that you take, what's it called? It helps the lungs, the steroids. But, Tom, I'd like your comment on that, please.
Oh, my goodness. Oh,
all right. Well, he's not a medical practitioner, so he's got to tippy-toe around some of this stuff. Go ahead, Tom.
And all we can say is that, Dr. Schallenberger, for example, has offered the hydrogen peroxide therapy, which is actually a very inexpensive way to treat the lungs and breathe through it with a nebulizer, which is $25 on Amazon, so that you basically can disinfect the lungs from whatever bacteria or virus may be there. Ozone generators are also something that we use all the time in almost every room that I work in or sleep in. So, and those are available on Amazon too. Ozone generators are great because you can plug them in the wall and just leave them on 24 hours a day.
Tom, did you invent some of these units, these bioelectromagnetic units?
Yes, actually, in fact, the latest one, I've been working for the past 2 weeks now to make sure we can meet our deadline of November 1st. So, yes, I'm an electro engineer and also a physicist, and it's fun putting them together. Even the tri-metal bracelet was something that I thought, gee, we should make it available to others because it's not anywhere commercially available. So, yeah, we try to provide things that are affordable. Since we're a nonprofit charitable organization, we can do research and then offer those products at a reasonable price. And
I've noticed that you have different kinds of wands that you attach to the unit, right?
For the Premier Junior, that's correct. You can go for the Model 500 that has 4 different wands, or gas tubes as we call them, or the Model 200, which is only $495 and has 1 mushroom tube. And the mushroom tube tends to be the most popular.
Jan in New York. Hi, Jan. Go ahead.
Hi. A quick comment and then a question.
Okay.
The comment is this. On one of your programs, George, she mentioned hemp seed oil against radioactivity, and my body just craves it. Okay, now my question. I have lasers, LED light, and lasers red, but I found out when you use it, if you use an energizing red light and you circle your food, it makes the food taste absolutely delicious, and it gives energy. Do you have anything like that?
Anything that you can wave over food, Thomas?
Well, our LED array actually does provide the red LED light. That certainly, it's a hand-sized device. You can, shine it over anything, including food.
Why would food taste differently with that light on it?
That's the first time I've heard that.
Maybe it's better than microwaving, huh?
Oh, learn something new every day.
Mike in Illinois. Hi, Michael. Still a lot of restrictions in Illinois, I bet, huh?
Yes, there are, George.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for taking my call. Tom, back in around, 98, 99 or so, I was watching this show, as the energy show, and at one of the segments on the show, these two fellas had invented this device that they had outside of this test house, and it was a great big box, and they said it kind of worked like an ionic breeze, and the plates inside it had a bunch of metal plates inside, and they said they were a proprietary metal that they had developed, and they provided a small trickle of electricity to get it started, and as the ambient air passed through it, it took molecules in the air and broke the covalent bonds on the molecules and released energy, and the plates absorbed the energy, and they were powering this entire house with it. And they said all it required was a trickle of energy to get it started, and basically they were powering the entire house with it, and then selling the excess back to the grid, they said.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that from the test that they were showing so far, they said they could basically guarantee this unit for 99 years. Of course, they said it was about $250,000, but they said the price would come down as the technology got better, you know. But I'm just wondering, is this something that you might know about, knowing about zero-point energy and such?
Actually, I've heard those stories for the past 40 years.
Really? That long?
Absolutely. They became alive in 1980, and they haven't gone away yet. So, and it's a wild goose chase to go after them. I give a lot of credit to Foster Gamble, who's produced the Thrive movie video. He's now doing Thrive 2, I believe. He was basically trying to chase down every single one of those stories and investigate them, try to get a scientist to measure them. I've known half a dozen scientists, colleagues of mine, that have done the same thing. Oh, let's fly out to the inventor's site and go test it and see what he's doing. And unfortunately, even today, as I say, with the Manellis device, we found one, like a needle in the haystack, that's worth pursuing and has been vindicated and vetted by PhDs that actually can't explain how the excess energy has been created.
Tom, realistically, when do you think homes will get their own self-contained electrical system that regenerates itself?
Well, you know, and I wouldn't mention this on very many shows, but on this show, I feel I can get away with it. Years ago, I went to an interesting kind of a mystical conference, and there was a PhD there who had studied actually remote viewing and psychic phenomena, and actually did a study of thousands of subjects and asked them exactly that question. Well, most of them, interestingly enough, he basically called it the 2050 project. And that's the year that I...
2050.
Well, because he said most of his subjects said by 2050, everyone has a little box in their home, in their car, in their plane that provides all the electricity they want.
That's 30 more years away. We got to speed that up. Tom, we're going to come back in a moment and take final phone calls with you right here on Coast to Coast AM.